Hey everybody, this is Tony here and welcome to another episode of the Sit Down. This isn't usually my thing to do, but there's just been so much going on in the country and really in the world as a whole that I wanted to discuss. And what really has motivated me to do this is I just feel like there aren't enough sane, also self-aware voices out. People are just kind of either in their own bubble or they can't take in new information. It's pretty much close to the same thing, but I just wanted to just give my input on some things, and you all feel free to comment or ask questions or whatever, and I'll try to get to it because I really find the things I'm going to talk about today extremely important to the country and I think society as a whole on this planet. But first thing I want to discuss is the presidential election. And I never really found the presidential election itself to be that important as much as it is kind of a gauge of how we are as a country, as a society. We have two okay choices. I feel like one of the choices for the Democratic Party, at least, was better than the one that we had. But also, even though that selection might have been, to a lot of people, borderline senile, at least he had the experience. Now, who we have on the ticket for the Democratic Party coming up in 2024, she has experience being a VP, but other than that, she really doesn't have a lot of experience in the U.S. government, if that makes sense, at least in Washington. You have Donald Trump, who basically had no experience until he all of a sudden was the president. So depending on how you want to look at things, just based on how you are in your bubble, neither one of these candidates really have good experience, I think. Enough experience, I think, to be running the country. One of them is just basically, both of them are basically just put in the position they're in now. And if Kamala becomes the president, she'll be the second in the last 12 years to basically just be put in this position with little to no experience. But nothing against either candidate. But I wanted to discuss the independent vote. I feel like a lot of people are either not going to turn out or they're going to try and find a candidate that kind of goes with their beliefs. And I know a lot of people say that if you vote for an independent candidate in a two-party system, you're just helping the other party. But I think that's kind of the issue as well. And it's a human nature issue. You never think like, okay, if I start going down this path of kind of creating something that I think is right and I kind of choose the lesser of two evils, I mean, if you do that for your life, then you're always going to have the lesser of two evils. If you decide, hey, I know we're not going to get this candidate this year, but maybe the next 8 years, 12 years, this can actually be a viable option, might as well start voting now because you may be voting for the other party, but depending on how dire you think things are in this country, and to me, I don't really think it's that bad. I think you kind of are going either way towards the center just based on each candidate, because a lot of candidates get in there and they say they're going to do this, they're going to do that. And I think the Republicans have a longer track record, at least today's Republicans have a longer track record of doing more, I think trying to go back in history more than the Democrats, but it's a two-way street as well. Sometimes the Democrats go a little too far trying to, I feel, almost patronize certain demographics for the vote. And maybe it's not for the vote, but that's how it comes off to a lot of people. But if Donald Trump becomes a president again, I don't think it will be as terrible as a lot of people think. But I also wouldn't bet on it either, because he is someone who is, say what you will, he's not your typical Republican candidate, but that can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on who you are and basically how his campaign and everybody in his campaign feels. So I do think Kamala Harris is kind of like Hillary Clinton. She's a woman, so a lot of people don't really respect that, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. But also just seeing how, Kamala was a prosecutor, which isn't really always the best view to take, I guess, for people in the Democratic Party or those who tend to vote Democrat. But I also, and you can look at Joe Biden over the years that he's been in office since the 1980s, 1970s, things of that nature. I don't want to say he's necessarily flip-flop on a lot of issues, but he has come to, I feel like, see things from different perspectives. And that's really what you want in anyone who's running the country. You don't want them to just be like, okay, these people over here see things my way, so I'm just going to try and do what we think is right, instead of thinking, hey, these people over here, maybe they didn't vote for me, but maybe I can, see how we can come to terms, or maybe get them to see things from a different perspective. But most importantly, you want to be as self-aware and open-minded as possible when you're in any government space, because especially in the United States, you're not going to have 100% of the people in your particular district, state, country seeing things the way that you'll see them. And I think that's very important, because that's part of the reason that we have so many wars going on, so many issues going on in this country and worldwide, because people don't want to see things from other people's perspectives. And I do think, again, that's important if you want to actually make any real progress in this world. Now, kind of shifting topics here, I want to go to the vice president pick for Tim Walz, the Minnesota governor. Kamala picked him to be the vice presidential candidate, on the Democratic ticket. And I found something interesting. Someone sent me this morning about how he had it was a while ago, but he basically was driving while intoxicated, and I think he was running from the police or whatever, and then by the time the lights came on, he was doing like 95 and a 55, and he finally pulled over, whatever. It was a 93, it's a 90 something. So I thought it was wild, but after everything was said and done, all he got was a reckless driving conviction. And I don't know if he had any other convictions of anything, of that nature growing up, but just the fact that he has it on his record and no one has talked about it, I think. At least, he's a Minnesota governor, so here in the South, I probably wouldn't have heard about it anyway. But I just find it interesting that he's now going to be the VP candidate for the Democratic Party. And then when you look on the Republican side, you have Donald Trump, who literally just got convicted of 34 counts. He's literally a convicted felon now. And he's running for the president of the United States. Now, a lot of people can't vote for the president of the United States because they are convicted felons, but a convicted felon can run for president. And say what you will, whether you're a Trump supporter or not, it's just so hypocritical that this party has always seen, I feel like, criminals, especially criminals of a different background, whether that's color or gender identification or whatever, they're always trying to bring them down. And yet you're like, okay, let's go ahead and make this guy the president after he's been convicted. And now, whether you want to call it a false conviction or whatever, according to the U.S. justice system, he's a convicted felon. So he was doing things that he knew were illegal. And now we're just like, oh, it's okay. We still want you to be the president. That's just, it's baffling to me. And it's also sad because the hypocrisy in America really just, it can make your skin crawl if you're paying attention or if you care, because there are so many people who have been convicted by police. You think of a George Floyd or a Sandra Bland, or heck, anybody else who's been shot and killed by the police for basically just being who they are. And then you have other people who can be convicted of felonies, and convicted for felonies in their home state, by the way, and be basically the next president of the United States for a second term after they lost in between their first term and their possible second term. And that's so American to me. It's just so American. So it's sad, but it's also funny the more I talk about it. It's wild. And when you're used to being, especially Black in America, there's always something, you know what I mean? It's always one of those things where you see things happen and you're like, yep, that's my country. So we'll see what happens if he actually wins. But I mean, again, this is why I see an independent choice so crucial, because we're always choosing between professionals, like professional politicians, not people who actually care about the country. And it's not just in America, it's all over the world. Now, my next topic kind of goes hand in hand with this, just the laziness. I feel like this whole episode is going to be about the mediocrity and the laziness of America. And this is kind of a personal story here. I've been working on, I have some land in Tennessee that I basically started from scratch, and I've been trying to just build. It's kind of been like a passion project for me. So I have an RV down there, I have a shed down there, just a little bit. It's kind of my place to go on the weekends when I want to relax. I spent close to probably 25 grand on this spot, and I have been going out of my way to either hire individuals or hire people who own a small business to work on it. And every chance I've gotten, I've done the right thing by these people, and they've all basically just slapped me right in the face. And people are so worried about immigration and about China and trying to put tariffs on these other countries that are doing better work and are less lazy than us as a whole. And instead of thinking, maybe we could try harder, maybe we could work harder, maybe we can develop something so that we can compete against these foreign people coming into this country or these foreign people selling to our country, we're just like, nah, we gotta keep them out. We don't want any more immigrants. We don't want to buy anything else from China. We want to tax them as high as we can. And I think it is a two-way street. We're paying the individuals here a lot of money, and they're spending a lot of money. And that's why the inflation rate's so high. It's not because of Biden doing this. It's not because of Trump doing that. It's based on us as a society saying, okay, I'm not going to spend money until after the election. And then if my candidate is the winner, the country's going to be okay. Now, we should know that most of the people that are in office, when they're in office, what they're doing doesn't really take effect until after they're gone. Just kind of always been that way, unless you're talking about like the Emancipation Proclamation or the New Deal or something like that just takes effect and was so revolutionary that it just did its thing while that person was in office. But certain tax breaks, certain policies really don't shape up to fruition until after that candidate's long gone, or after that president is long gone, excuse me. So again, I think it is on us to work harder, to worry less about what everyone else is doing, and make sure that we're doing the best that we can do. And I know we're not used to that as America, because we're just used to being lazy. We're used to not having to put the work in. We're used to just complaining about, it's always somebody else's fault. That's just as American as it can be. It's never, hey, we need to stop this. Hey, we need to try this. We need to fix this. It's like, oh, well, this is China's fault. This is the illegal immigrants' fault. This is the Democrats' fault. It's the Republicans' fault. It's all of our faults. Until we fix it, it's everybody's fault. It's all of our responsibilities. We live here. But again, it's just, if you're like, I don't think I'm perfect, but I do go out of my way to be self-aware. So if I know I'm doing something wrong, I don't think the first thing to do is to blame somebody else. The first thing I do is try and, what Michael Jackson say, look at the man in the mirror. So I look at myself and I think, okay, what can I be doing differently? And then I try to change what I can. And if someone else needs to be changed after that, hopefully I've done enough that it doesn't matter. But if it does, then I can say, okay, well, I know I'm not perfect. I know that I fixed all these things that were wrong. Let's see what you need to fix. And then before you know it, if everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing, we'll be better as a whole, as a society. Now, something else I find interesting going off of that is the same people who want to complain about welfare and about people getting all this money on their taxes and whatever, they're the same people that use a tax code that was made to benefit them, while these other people who you say don't work or whatever, they're the ones, they're paying more tax than you are. And I think about your Elon Musk, your Donald Trumps, and even like your Walmarts, the companies who literally they're asking you to donate money or round up to the nearest dollar to support whatever so they can use that as a tax break. Like everything that they do is used as an expense. And then you have people who are barely getting by and you're worried about the government giving them money that you paid. Meanwhile, have you seen how much we pay for our military? Have you seen how much we're paying for infrastructure? And those same people, you see them on the side of the road and you complain, oh, no one's doing any work. Like it's 20 people standing around to dig one hole. All of us are guilty of doing something that's making this worse, excuse me. And it's laziness. That's really all it is. I don't ever tell anybody, hey, you're not doing enough work, because I know I could always be doing more. But I'm not gonna go say, hey, you know what? You're not doing enough while I'm sitting on my tail. Or we don't need to have you getting welfare or you getting money back on your taxes because I have to pay that. What you're getting, you probably don't deserve anyway. I'm being real. And that's just how America is. And you can say it's a capitalism thing, but also people think socialism is so terrible. I think if one country deserves socialism, it's America. Because you have so many people complaining while they're out here living large and wasting money. And they're complaining about the little guy over here is working 2 or 3 jobs and is still under the poverty line. Like, I think that's a lot of nerve. But, the more you think about the stuff, the more it really makes me heated how so many people in this country are just complainers. That's all you do is complain. Instead of, okay, you know what? If I'm in the 1%, or heck, if I'm in the top 2%, I should be blessed with what I have. I shouldn't be like, oh, look, them over there on the bottom 10%, they're getting money back on their taxes. And they have 3 kids and they're barely able to eat. I mean, just worry about yourself. Mind your own business. Now, I do find it very interesting when it comes to, again, back to the presidential race. You have Kamala Harris, who is, I don't know what her rap sheet is. If she has a rap sheet, I doubt it, for her to be black and Indian, or Jamaican and Indian, excuse me, and to be in this presidential race. I'm sure she's, not a 3-time convicted felon or anything like that, but everyone's complaining about her on the right. Like, oh, she doesn't have the experience. The country's going to go downhill if she's president. First of all, you know nothing about her. Second of all, you all have a convicted felon, a 34-time convicted felon who still has plenty of other pending charges that he has to worry about. Now, I will say some of that is kind of a bit much. And I do think that since Donald Trump got in this race, both sides of the political aisle have been attacking him. At least, real Republicans, real Democrats, people that are actually in government that can actually do something about this. They've been complaining about him and they've been trying to get rid of him. But since he's in now, I would find it hypocritical to really be attacking him on anything. But at the same time, I wouldn't, because when Obama was in office, they were saying he wasn't American the entire 8 years he was in there. And you guys are over here talking about, oh, these charges are just trumped up charges and they're just trying to falsely convict him. Okay, well, based on the U.S. government's codes of conduct, laws, things of that nature, what the country was found on, he was found guilty. So, really? But it's just, this is what I think it should be. I think the best candidate should win, and we shouldn't have to try and downplay somebody else. And again, going back to how America is, we're always trying to make somebody else look worse instead of trying to better ourselves. If you're Kamala, if you're Trump, you shouldn't be like, oh, so-and-so's doing this. Did you see what they did over there? What about what you're doing? What about how you can better my life? How you can better the country? And I don't think during campaigns that's ever been a thing, because that's not what people like. Americans don't care about what you're doing for them. They're caring about how you're going to take care of them, or how you're going to make them look stupid, or how you're going to make these people look bad. And that's what's wrong, again, with our society. We're not worried about how everyone can be better. It's always got to be, all right, I want to be better by pushing them down, or I want them to be worse so that I can make myself feel better. And it's just it's so sad that's how we are as a society. It's pathetic. It really is. But going back to the mediocrity, and again, I just wanted to get this out because it's really been weighing heavy on me the past few days. But I kind of want to wrap it all up with the mediocrity of the United States. Again, we're so worried about China. They're going to take us over with their communism, or they're spying on us, or whatever. How can we do things better instead of always being like, you know what, China's doing this, China's doing that. Well, what are we doing? We're not doing anything better, so we can't really complain that China's making things cheaper, they're making them better, this, that, and the other. You can put tariffs on, but again, that's just making us not have to work harder. And that's why I think you'll see a big downturn in the U.S. economy, because I think a lot of these emerging markets, if you think of Mexico, if you think of, heck, if you want to put China in there, I don't even think they're an emerging market now. They're kind of like America now, or even India. Like, these people are working so much harder than we are, and we're wondering why they're beating us in everything, or why all of our American companies are, buying them cheaper than they're buying us, to basically charge us more money, and then we have to deal with them overseas. We can't understand what they're saying. Instead of complaining about it, we need to do something about it. We need to work harder. We need to be better. And I'd always think that, this is it. This is the best I'm going to give. And if you don't like that, then you're the problem. If you're not giving your best, then do you deserve to even have a job? Do you deserve to work? Because these big corporations are saying no. And unless you have someone like a Donald Trump who is scaring these companies back into America, it's always going to be that way. And then we have a whole other issue if we are scaring these companies back, because then who's going to be getting paid? The rich are going to get richer, and the poor are just going to have to work 3 times as hard to make them rich. So don't worry about what China's doing. Don't worry about what Mexico's doing, India's doing. What can you be doing to better your life and better the American society as an American? But with that being said, thank you all for watching. Please go ahead, leave a comment down below if you want to argue with me, because I love to address comments in later episodes. And with that being said, catch y'all next time.